Good morning, lovely people. I hope you are all doing well. This week we've been looking at the different ways that authors and illustrators can enhance a text and keep us as the readers interested and entertained. Today we're going to take some time to look at a few visual techniques the illustrator has used. We're going to look at the use of colour and we're going to look at framing. What's framed, why it might be framed, and how it impacts us as the reader. This page in our text shows us both the use of colour and of framing. Let's start with the framing. Illustrators may put some images within a frame on the page. So here we see the frame going around here. Now, this could be for many different reasons. For the reader to focus on what's in the frame, to draw the reader's eye in. If we look at this picture, we see the frame is right in the centre of the page. Where does the frame draw our eye as the reader? For me, my eye went straight to the centre of the page. It's where the frame has been set, so my focus becomes the interaction that's happening here between the Indigenous and the convicts and the soldiers here. The use of colour too within the frame also helps to draw my eye, as opposed to the black and white that's around the background here. But I think it's also coloured for other reasons as well. What other reasons do you think the illustrator may have chosen to present this particular image inside the frame in colour? Take a moment to think. For me, I think it's representing the new world that the Indigenous people were being brought into. It represents the future of the colony that the British are trying to establish. And once I've looked really closely at the interaction between the British and the Indigenous, my eye is drawn to what's outside the frame. I see lots of native animals in their natural habitat. I see Indigenous men. One man is making a fire. One man is hunting for food, both of which I know are traditional Indigenous practices. So the black and white on the outside of the frame shows me the traditional ways of the Indigenous, while the colour inside represents the new world that they were about to live in. The natives have been coming to the forest behind the hospital lately. Molly waved to one of them, who waved back, and I thought that one day we might be able to be friends with them. I saw Mr. Brady writing in his journal again tonight. This line here, one day we might be able to be friends with them. This line for me suggests that Beth has many great hopes and dreams for life in this new colony. Then we read Mr. Brady's journal and we get a very different perspective. This initially seemed an ideal place for a settlement. The soil seemed good for growing crops, but on closer inspection, it's nothing more than thick black sand. The trees are not good for timber and the ground is covered in enormous black and red ants. Some natives came near to us this morning. They brought us some wild berries. They carry long spears which they use to catch fish. We managed to swap a looking glass for the berries, 2 fish and a war club. My servants, Beth and Molly, are still sleeping outside at night as all of the tents are full. Molly complained that a rat ran across her legs last night. So here we learn more about the colony and some of the difficulties faced by the British. The soil wasn't good for growing crops, and they needed those crops to feed the colony. The trees weren't providing the timber needed to build the houses that they required. And there were many harsh native bugs and animals that they had to cope with. We learned too about some positive interactions between the Indigenous and the British. They traded goods, which would have been difficult given that they couldn't speak one another's languages. Molly and I have been ordered to dig a garden bed to plant vegetables. Many of the other convicts are doing the same. You can see the hard work of the convicts here, particularly given what we know from Mr. Brady's journal that it was difficult to grow crops. Everyone in the colony will share whatever we can grow because the food brought from England won't last very long. Each of us gets a certain amount of food called rations, which have to last all week. The women and children get less food than the men, which I don't think is fair, as we do almost as much work as the male convicts. Here again, we get Molly's perspective. She doesn't think it's fair. And that makes me, as the reader, agree with her. That's not fair. I can see, because I've developed this relationship as we've read the text, that she is working hard. She's doing all the right things. Why should she have to have fewer rations than everybody else? I agree. I don't think it's fair. Your task today is called A Day in the Life. Think about the kind of days Beth was having. We know she moves rocks. We know she creates vegetable gardens. We know she sees the Indigenous people, though she seems quite frightened of them. We know she doesn't have much food as she's on rations, and we know she sleeps outside. What else do you know about Beth? Think about the type of person she is and how that might impact the way she goes about her day. Remember Year 4? We are after detailed responses here, not just one sentence. You can't make and express meaning in one line. Be sure you are taking think time and be creative. Have a great day of learning, everyone.